Welcome to In the Hot Seat with WRP. Welcome to In the Hot Seat with WRP, where our mission is to inspire an entrepreneurial mindset through engaging conversation. Today, we have a special guest who's been on the big screen and who's been on the big stage. I'm not going to tell you what he does. He's going to tell you. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Darius Wallace. How you doing, Darius?
I'm doing great, Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we start, I want you to tell the audience and the viewers a little bit about yourself, your background. Give some background, where you from, where you were raised, where you did your schooling, and so forth.
Well, I was actually raised in Flint, Michigan. So
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard of Flint. Everybody knows Flint because of the water crisis. But actually, when I grew up in Flint, it was a very, very nice city. I still love my city, even though it's gone through some challenges. And back during that time, when I grew up, I was very, very shy.
Okay.
My father was worried about it.
Uh-huh.
And this is back in the days, I don't want to age myself. This is back in the days when it was one movie, one theater. My father took me to the movie theater to see a movie. And when I came back, I was punching, kicking, and screaming. I'd just seen Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. And I wanted to be just like him. So I found out he was a child actor. And when I found that out, I wanted to be an actor. But I had issues. I really struggled with reading. And so my father was concerned about that. So he would leave books on my desk, hoping when I woke up, I would begin to read. And by the time I was 13 years old, I was this size, believe it or not.
Okay.
I looked like a senior in high school, had sideburns, had a deep voice. And because I practiced martial art, I was a prime target for gang life, street life, and I got involved. But there was an intervention. Mr. Bronson, he basically said, I know what you love to do. You can continue the route you're going and go to juvenile or jail, or I can tell your daddy. Or you can do what I know you love to do, which is theater. Well, let me be clear. You can send me to juvie, you can send me to jail, just don't tell my daddy. So I chose theater. And because of theater, the world of reading and words opened up to me. The world of stories opened up to me. And I ended up getting into professional theater at about 19 years old. And I've been doing professional theater ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I got into theater.
Okay. What was your first acting role?
My first professional acting role was in Michigan Shakespeare Festival, Caliban in Shakespeare's The Tempest. Was my first Shakespearean role. My first acting job. I had just got kicked out of my house. I was living in a rooming house, and so I was able to pay my rent at that time, about 19 or 20 years old, off of that check, playing Caliban in The Tempest. So,
Okay. Wow.
yeah.
And I know that you are an actor and a storyteller. How did you get involved in storytelling?
Well, to be honest, acting itself really is storytelling.
Okay.
Except that when you're just focused on acting itself, you are the character within the overall story. But even that character has a story that maybe the audience never sees. You know what I mean? But you, as the actor, need to know the life of whatever character you're playing. And so that was the beginning of my storytelling. But as it relates to one-person shows and that type of storytelling, I was working a side job as a security guard. And at that time, I had a goatee, I had glasses that looked like Malcolm X. And the security guard was Muslim. He said, you should do a show on Malcolm X. So something went off in my head, ended up writing a one-person show on Malcolm X.
Wow.
And that toured around the country. And then that led to Martin Luther King, toured that around the country. And then that eventually led to playing the life of Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
And I've been doing Frederick Douglass for about 20 plus years now.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of my storytelling journey.
What's the first story that you told to an audience? The first story.
You mean as far as a solo performer or just
solo performance?
It would have been Malcolm X.
Okay.
Yeah, the life story of Malcolm X was the beginning of that whole journey. As far as just in general, type of storytelling, really, I would say that that's been mainly recently where I would be asked to speak and tell my story. And the journey that I've taken, because I've been through a whole lot as a human being and as an actor, and so I would say my story was the first story that I told that wasn't a historical character.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a story compelling?
Well, there's several things. I might have told you this before, but there was a young man who wrote a story way back in the '60s. That was really, really bad. He was a screenwriter. None of the studios wanted to make the movie. But then he ran across a book called Hero with 1,000 Faces. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Well, in this book, there's a concept called the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is a concept that's in every myth, every religion, every folklore, every great book, every great movie. So he was so fascinated with the hero's journey in this book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces, he went to he audited a class on it in California. And he learned everything he could. He took the knowledge, brought it back to the screenplay, rewrote it, and the studios loved it. They loved it so much, they turned it into a movie in 1978. It is now a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and it's called Star Wars.
Wow.
And the young man's name was George Lucas. So what was it within the hero's journey that made the movie compelling? Star Wars is a religion now. You know what I mean? The Force, right? What made it that big? Why is there's still movies being made about it? And it's because of the hero's journey, which is story structure. And story structure really is the structure of life. So what makes a story compelling is when it mirrors our lives. And when we can capture that as storytellers, then we're engaged in the audience. We as human beings are wired for stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. How do you come up with your ideas when you are coming up with the next story you want to tell to an audience? How do you come up with that?
Well, it used to be where it was mainly spontaneous because I didn't always know these types of things. It was more intuitive, spontaneous. I would say now I have a lot of source material now. I know life is source,
Okay.
right? I people watch a lot. I listen a lot. The most important word in communication is one word, it's listen, right?
Yeah.
I watch a lot of movies to gain ideas. I read a lot of books to gain ideas. And I allow for all those things to affect me in order to create the stories. There's great stories in folklore. There's great stories in myth. There's great allegories. The Bible itself is full of amazing allegories that hidden within those stories are universal truths that are eternal. And there are other religions and other spaces in the world that have that same power in the allegory. So I use all that as source material to help me create stories with the intention of hopefully inspiring people.
I know that you said that you got your first professional role at 19, correct?
Yes.
When did you become serious about your career?
I want to say that it was really at that time. You see, I really haven't known much more than acting.
Okay.
Just like you had in high school, you had the football jock, you had the basketball jock. I really leaned on acting as a high school. I didn't do well academically, even though theater turned me on to being able to read. I didn't do well, so I leaned into storytelling. And so when I graduated from high school, I did go to conservatory for theater for a little bit of time, but all I knew to take care of myself was acting. And so really, I would say at that time, I was already on a journey, which you have to be. You got to be serious.
Yeah.
because it's too competitive to not be.
Now, did you have an agent back then, or did that evolve into getting one?
It evolved.
Okay.
Yeah, it evolved. I had my first agent back then, but not when I had my first, performance. It was probably maybe a year and a half or two after that I got my first agent. And it made a difference, The agent doesn't get you all your work. I would say 95% of the work that I get is on my own. But the agent can open up doors for you to get work that otherwise would be really, almost impossible for you to get because of the relationships and the connections that they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a business owner or an entrepreneur?
That's a very good question. I would say right now, an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I do see what I do as a business, and if I don't work, I don't eat.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. So definitely an entrepreneur. However, I'm starting to now see myself as a business owner because a lot of the work that I've gotten in the past has been through word of mouth. And now that I'm in a different market, Atlanta, I'm finding that I now have to go on the hunt. And in order to do that, I got to build the business.
Gotcha.
So in that sense, I'm starting to feel more like a business owner, maybe still in the solopreneur realm, but definitely a business owner.
Okay. So how has your journey been thus far?
As a business owner or as an entrepreneur?
As an entrepreneur.
It's been wild. It's been an adventure. It's been blessings and it's been challenges. I've been walking in the unknown for many years. It's just a part of the life that I've accepted to live. But it's what I love to do. So it's a beautiful life. I feel very fortunate to have been making a living this long doing what I love to do. Have raised 3 children. Still, there's a 14-year-old that I'm raising, but it's a blessing to be doing what I love to do. Even in the challenges, it's still a blessing.
Okay. All right. Let's move on over to your inspiration. Who is your biggest inspiration in the acting world?
Wow, that's I can't say that there's really one. I would say that, coming up, there was a man, a beautiful actor by the name of Sidney Poitier, that at that time was really one of very few African American. Well, he was actually from the Bahamas, so black man that had that kind of presence in movies. And so I really was heavily inspired by Sidney Poitier, his acting ability, his grace, his intensity, his power. And then there was Howard Rollins. I don't know if you remember him.
I remember him.
Ragtime.
Soldier Story.
Yeah, Soldier Story, Ragtime. And he was also had that same beauty, that grace, that power. And if you remember in Soldier Story, there was a young man that was the fiery, angry young man that challenged him, who we now know as Denzel.
Absolutely.
Who's a master.
Absolutely.
Denzel is the absolute master. But then there were others. There was Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Marlon Brando. There's many others that has inspired me. But I would say those were the main people that really gave me inspiration as an actor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, would that be the same for storytelling, or is there other people that have inspired you from the storytelling side?
Yeah, there. You know what? There's a woman who's amazing, who's a solo performer also. Her name is Sarah Brown. No, I'm sorry, not Sarah Brown. Sarah Jones.
Okay.
Oh, she's phenomenal. She's more of an activist with her solo performing, but she is beyond amazing, beyond brilliant. I saw her for the first time in the 90s at the New Eurekan Cafe in Manhattan. And I had never seen anything like it before in my life.
If you haven't already, like this video, comment, and share with a friend for more insight into the entrepreneurial world.
Since then, she's done Broadway. She's done specials, television specials. But she's amazing. So I would say she definitely is. And then Whoopi Goldberg's one woman show she did on Broadway many years ago. And Whoopi Goldberg, by the way, is an amazing actor that I gained a lot of inspiration from.
Okay. How do you prepare for a role? Let's just say you're going in audition for a particular character. How do you prepare it? Any special techniques or rituals that you do?
Yeah, there's several things. I get the sides, I read through it. I try to read through it a number of times so I can get the story of what's going on in the story of my character. And then I do what's called script analysis, where I kind of break it down to get an idea of why I'm there as the character and what I want out of this moment from this person and what's getting in my way. Try to discover that. And then I try to, in my imagination, understand who the character is. Is the character close to me or not? And if not, then what am I going to do to build the character for this audition? And so that's just a few of the things that I do to prepare. And then I really work it, I really play with it, I do have a coach myself,
wow.
Yeah, I get coaching also. For those that don't know, I'm also a presentation, communication, storytelling coach, but I have an acting coach that helps me. And to name a few, that's what I do to prepare for an audition and for a role even deeper, because now you're dealing with the whole script and what's happening in the whole script. So.
Now, is that common for actors to have coaches, or is that just something that some actors may do, some don't?
I think it reflects in the professional world as well as in the athletic world that it's probably less of the people in the professional world that have coaches, than people who do.
Okay.
So I would imagine in the acting world, it's probably the same thing, that not everybody has a coach, but I find it valuable. There's a great story about, did you know Michael Jordan had a coach? I can't think of his name, but.
Are you talking about in terms of when he was playing basketball?
Yeah.
He had head coaches.
Well, he had a coach outside of the team. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You see, Michael Jordan was naturally gifted, but he wasn't a winner yet. He wanted that championship. And I wish I could remember the coach's name, but he hired a coach. And that coach had Michael Jordan, I believe, practicing 3 hours after the game he just won.
Wow.
Yeah. And gave him all kinds of, like when he did that Disney movie, he had Hollywood build him a basketball court. And he invited friends from other teams to play. So he'd shoot the movie, then he'd go practice because he wanted to win the championship. He wanted to beat Detroit.
I remember those days.
Yeah, he wanted to beat Detroit. So the greatness of Michael Jordan was because he had a coach to help him go deeper. And he loved that coach so much, he hired that coach not to work with anyone else.
Wow.
Yeah. Until there was a young man that was competing against him, and the young man that was standing next to him whispered, because he was guarding Michael Jordan, whispered to him, he says, when you do that pivot, it's really smooth. How can I learn to do that? And Michael Jordan told him, and then he allowed for that coach to work with him, and that was Kobe Bryant.
Wow.
So Kobe Bryant then was practicing 3 hours after the game for 3 hours that he just won, and began to do all those dynamics. Would walk the court and see where the dead spots were, where the ball wouldn't bounce as well, and where it bounced really well, so he could lead people to where the ball, they could steal the ball, little things like nuances. And we know those two players to be two of the greatest players of all time.
And speaking of Kobe Bryant, I read something, it was recently, or I saw it on the internet, which basically he said he puts in more work than the average person. During their training, during the off season, he said if we had 2 a days, he said I do 4.
Yeah.
So he's like, when you all asleep, I'm up training from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just like, wow.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just that relentless mindset.
That's
You know,
right.
I'm going to be better than the next person. And you have to put in that work.
Yeah,
It's all about a mindset.
that's right.
Just like going into business, having entrepreneurial mindset, it's not easy out there.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
It's doing things today that others won't do, so you'll have things tomorrow that others won't have.
Yeah,
A lot of people won't do it.
yeah. You know, it's that deep work. It's the work that no one else sees.
Yes.
I like to give this analogy. When you see an iceberg, what do you think that it is? An iceberg.
A big block of ice.
A big block of ice. And you know the story of the Titanic, right? So that's what the Titanic thought
Yeah.
as it was approaching that big block of ice, and it was procrastinating, right? And then as it got closer, it realized it had to make a move, but then it was too late, so it hit it. But of course, it was the unsinkable ship, so it was going to be all right. But we know what actually happened.
Yeah.
It's because that block of ice is not a block of ice. It is a mountain underneath the water. The iceberg is the tip.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's this depth that wasn't seen, but the impact was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's move on to some challenges. What are some common challenges that you face in your profession as an actor?
Wow. Well, there's many. There's many. I think one is just living in the unknown, and you become used to it, but it's still, well, actually, you really don't become used to it, which is rejection. You learn to cope with it, and you learn to cope with it well over time. But I would say the realization that you can feel you did a dynamic job. You could even feel like, I got that one. I know I got that one. But the reality is it's not in my control. And so you learn to live with the space of being in the unknown, even when you feel like you're doing great work. And by the way, it continues. You know, even when you book the job, you don't really know all the circumstances that you're going to be dealing with. And you don't know if after this job, there's going to be another one, you know, sometimes. And so learning to live in the unknown is one of the major challenges that I've faced as an actor. And then after that, it's just, sometimes that character is really, that character is a character that's going to challenge you mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And, are you as an actor willing to meet that challenge and use all those muscles? Because your mind is a muscle, your emotion is a muscle, your body is a muscle. Your spirit is spirit, but faith is a muscle. And are you willing to use those muscles to meet that challenge? So, those are two major challenges, to name a few.
Okay. Yeah. Was there ever a situation in which you came out of an audition and you said, I know I nailed that one, and you didn't get it?
Oh, yes, plenty of those. It's plenty of those. There's some where I was like, I got that. And I got it. And there was some where it's like, I know I did dynamic, but I don't think I really want that. And I got it. There are other times when it's like, okay, there goes that one. And I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there have been many where, I wondered if I got it, didn't get it, or I thought I got it and I didn't get it, But you get used to it over time.
Okay.
You get
Gotta
used
have
to it.
thick skin.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also to the realization that it's a numbers game. Some will, some won't.
Some won't.
Next.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
Okay. How did the SAG-AFTRA strike affect you? And if it did, what are you doing differently now so that you won't be affected in the future?
Well, the way that affected me and what I did during that time is what I advocate now for actors, which is I had my own content.
Okay.
My one-person show on Frederick Douglass. So, no, I didn't get any film or television work during that time, but I had something as an actor that I could do to keep me working. And so that's not to say that there weren't times where you felt you felt it, but I had my own content to work with.
Okay.
That didn't offend, the SAG rules.
Okay.
And so I would advocate for actors to have other methods of being able to take care of themselves, because you don't know when a COVID is going to happen.
Exactly.
You don't know when a strike is going to happen. And you don't want to solely be dependent upon, especially in this day and age, on just your film and television work. You want to have another way to, I would encourage, put it to you that way, and suggest to have another way to take care of yourself under those circumstances. So what I did is what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always be prepared for the unknown.
Yes. Don't get ready, stay ready.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How do you face challenges and criticism for your on your performances?
I don't do that well. I don't do that well. I've gotten better, there was a show I did maybe a decade or more ago where I didn't do good. I knew I wasn't doing good in rehearsals. It was a bad feeling after every rehearsal. There were times when I wondered, why am I here? And sure enough, when the show opened, the review centered on me and the job that I did that for that particular role. It just didn't work out. And I think what was positive about that experience, that it was so in the light, right? Because when it's a review like that, everybody reads it. The cast has read it, you know what I mean? The public has read it. And so at that moment, it's either you completely just sink and you can take it hard enough to completely just let go or give up or let it be a block, or you can let that hard, painful moment teach you something about yourself and teach you something about your work and give you an understanding of maybe what you need to do. The review is really just one person's opinion, but I did believe that he was right in the review. And so what I did was I had coffee with the reviewer.
Wow.
Yeah, I had coffee with the reviewer, and we talked about it. And the reviewer said, I love your work. He said, but that particular role, you seem like you were miscast. And so we just had a good talk, but it was healing for me to be able to deal with it that way. It's natural when you get hard criticism to take it to heart, to take it personally. But I've found the healthier way is to learn from it and to realize that I can get better. I just got to do the work to do it, And so that's basically how I try to take the criticism, is to really listen and learn from it.
And the fact that you felt that you didn't do well, and the reviewer put in the review, you all met, you knew you were miscast in that. You probably felt that.
I did, absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Is that something that a lot of actors deal with? They get miscast and I got to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think that I think that can happen. I think sometimes you can feel you're miscast because it's a challenging role. And you can meet that challenge, which grows you as an actor. And then there are other times where it might not work out. And you just have to, you got to learn from it and be okay with it. It's a part of what we do, how we live. Yeah. We're the ones in the field playing. The spectators are spectating. The commentators are going to commentate. That's just the way it goes.
Okay. Are there any roles or genres that you haven't explored that you are hoping to do someday?
Wow, that's a good question. I would like to do more comedies.
I heard that
enjoy it.
comedy is not as easy as people
It's
say.
hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. Uh, it's beautiful when you can be the kind of actor to create laughter. It's great when you know, even if it's a tragedy or if it's a drama, that you still have that ability to create laughter in the audience, because laughter is healing, plain and simple.
Exactly.
You know, and so I admire comedians. Like I you know, that to me, the comedians are my heroes, because what they have to do, you know,
You have to be politically correct. It seems you have to be politically correct now to be a comedian.
It's
certain
difficult.
things you can say, certain
Yeah.
things you can't say. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's difficult now.
it's
than it
different.
used
Yeah,
to be.
and it was difficult even when, you know, you didn't have to be politically correct. You know what I mean? So, so I would say comedy is something that I'd like to be able to explore more. There have been comedies that I've been in that, you know, that are just fun. You know what I mean? Fun to go to rehearsals, fun to play in that space with the cast. You know, so I would say comedy.
Okay.
I do a lot of dramas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do a lot of dramas.
Okay. All right. How has the acting industry changed since you started?
Oh, it's changed dramatically. You know, when I started, the internet, I think, was just coming out. So, you know, as an auditioner, you came to the audition with the casting people, the producers, the director, maybe even in the room. And so you had a chance to relate to them. They had a chance to relate to you. That was one thing. That's how it was back then. Two, I can say that it wasn't as competitive, but there was less to compete for. And the because of that, the money was bigger in those days. Amazingly bigger in those days. And it was more about the movie than about television, even though television is really what makes you rich, right? But everybody wanted to be in the movies, you know, during that period of time. And so now, you know, you don't just have TV movies, you have streaming, you have, you know, podcasts, you know, you have YouTube, you know. And so there's a lot more work out there, but the money is spread out is a lot less. And then when it comes down to auditioning, you don't really go into the room as much anymore because of COVID. You have to tape yourself and send it.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't do that anymore. You have to do this. You have to light your room, have your camera, you know, maybe be mic'd, and have a reader, you know, and you do the audition. You upload it to a site, and it sends it to the casting, and it sends it to your agent.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's different. It's a different world.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And I don't know that we're living in a world of stars anymore, because the stars really are YouTubers. You know, the stars really are influencers. I think that now we go to movies mainly because of the name of the movie or the story. I could be wrong about that, but it's a different time.
And taping yourself audition, everything has to be right. The lighting, the sound.
That's what they want.
So I guess you have to have a dedicated space
You do.
to do that.
Oh yeah, you do. It's a production. I mean, it really is. It's not you know, when it first started, you could take it lightly, you know, because nobody had gotten, you know, hadn't become a thing yet. But during COVID, it became a thing. And so now, you know, quite frankly, if let's say it's a horror or a mystery, they wouldn't want the lights to be like this. It's better to dim it a little bit. And then, of course, depending on the show that you're auditioning for, you want to watch that show and get a sense of how things are flowing in that show, and maybe recreate a little bit of that. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're thinking about lighting, you're thinking about dress, you know, you're thinking about sound, how you're relating to the camera, eye line, and then there's a reader there. You know, now you have invisible characters that you got to play off of if it's more than in one scene. But what's good about it is you can do a number of takes. So in the past, when you come into the room, you got one shot.
Okay.
And if they're busy and you're not hitting it, they may say thank you before you even have a chance to finish the scene. With this, you can do it over again and again and again until you feel you got the best take to send. So that's positive.
Okay. So is that the norm now?
It is, very
wow.
much so, especially
Okay.
for film and television. Theater, I think they've gone back into the rooms.
Okay.
They're starting to slowly do that in film and television, mainly after they want to see you again. They may want to have you, if you do what's called a chemistry read, they may, bring the two actors or several actors in for that. But for the most part, it's on camera.
Okay. Are you currently working on any projects, and what can we expect from you in the future?
Yeah, there's a movie out right now called Queen Rising on Apple TV, Google Play, and YouTube TV. And I have a significant role in that. It's a suspense movie. It's really good. There's a movie where I have my first leading role in an independent film called Damaged Goods that's in the can that I'm excited about. It's film noir, blaxploitation, and a little action.
Okay.
Yeah, style. So that's going to be coming out more than likely in 2025. And then touring my one-man show, Frederick Douglass, The Lion of Freedom. I'll be taken around to theaters, colleges, universities, and some schools. So that's probably the biggest project that I have coming up.
So when will you start touring the Frederick Douglass one man, or have you started?
In the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a world premiere opening performance at the Rockdale County Arts Council Theater in Conyers a few weeks ago, and going to be my first performance on the road is in September.
Okay. How many cities are you hitting?
Right now, we're looking at 9, but I'm hoping to expand that.
it.
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this: how do you engage with your local community, both locally and online?
Locally, because I'm new to the community, it's been mainly through networking groups.
Okay.
I'm starting now at that same theater. I haven't started this yet, but this is my intention. They have a theater for people with physical and learning challenges. And so I intend on engaging the community in that respect. I'm going to start doing acting workshops in the community.
Okay.
I already do presentational communication coaching. And then online, through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I engage mainly through just bringing people into my life, but I'm going to now start doing more storytelling secrets, storytelling tips, and things of that. Storytelling itself to inspire is another way I'm going to be engaging community at large. So.
Okay. Have you found any particular communities or resources especially helpful in getting the word out about what you do?
I really think social media has been really fantastic. This past performance, it was almost full houses every performance. I think a lot of that had to do with social media.
Okay.
I've noticed that Georgia is very, very supportive of theater. And Atlanta in general, people come out.
Yes.
Yeah, they come out, and so I really appreciate that. So I think being new here, I've seen a lot of benefit to the community and from the community, and so I'm hoping we can create a system that we can continue to mirror in other communities.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would say what I've learned about here is that people really come out and they support. And they did in Memphis as well, where I spent a lot of time.
Have you done any television shows in the past?
Yeah, I have. I was on Law and Order SVU, Tyler Perry's Sisters, Hallmark Channel, done some things on that, some Netflix stuff, some Amazon Prime. So I've done some television, some feature films.
Is there a big difference between television and movies?
A little bit. I would say that television is more for the small screen.
Okay.
But it's capturing a longer story, so it has its own methods. Sitcoms, you're going to get a lot of medium up shots. You're not going to get a lot of close ups. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's going to have almost a sense of theater
Okay.
in sitcoms. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whereas in movies, it's really face up acting. It's going to be a lot of close ups, a lot of head and shoulder acting shots, more subtle. When you're dealing with movies, because the screen is so big.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can whisper, when you talk, because people can hear you. You know what I mean? And there's little technical things you got to be very much aware of when you're doing movies. And then I would say also television. They all have their own specific technicalities that you want to be aware of. But I enjoy both.
Okay. How did you like being on Law and Order? How did you like?
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I had a chance to meet and talk with Ice-T. He was, he's just like another guy from the neighborhood. He was very down to earth, really good guy. That was during COVID, actually.
Okay.
So I had to be tested. I think it was at least 4 or 5 times.
A day?
Well,
For the duration.
Yeah, for
okay.
the duration.
Okay.
I had to be tested, and in any given time, if I had caught it, I wouldn't have been able to be on the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite the experience. But and then Law and Order, that was exciting. It was just fun being on set for that one. When we did Law and Order SVU, that was outside on location, but Law and Order was on set, and had a fantastic time. I felt like a kid in the sandbox. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to be on the show. Cast me as a recurring character.
Okay.
Yeah.
What advice would you give an aspiring actor or storyteller?
As an actor, I would say the main thing is don't give up. There's some of us that do it because we want to do it. There's some of us that do it because we have to do it. And if you have to do it, don't give up. Keep going, keep bettering yourself. As it relates to stories, read stories. If you love stories, read stories. If you want to tell stories, read stories. And let stories influence you so that when you tell stories, you can influence others.
Well put. What valuable lessons have you learned? I'm sure you learned a lot in your acting and storytelling career.
I tell you, it has been a lesson in faith, which is 2 things. The Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This is also scientific, because everything we see, even this podcast at one time, didn't exist. It was in your imagination.
Exactly.
And you had to see it there in what was invisible first, and have faith to see it manifested. So it has been a lesson in understanding that everything we see comes from something we cannot see. They say that 99% of reality is invisible. Only 1% is visible.
Wow.
So the acting world has been a lesson in that. Also, faith is saying yes to God's good, the good that you desire. A lot of times we're not willing to say yes to what's good because we don't feel like we're worth it or worthy of it. But this industry has taught me to say yes to what's good and to say yes to the good that I desire.
Okay. Well put. Well said. Okay. To give the audience, I want you to share a memorable experience that you've had on set. A memorable or a challenging experience.
Wow. I would say one memory. It was challenging and it was a good memory. Was when I was in a movie with Kate Beckinsale and Matt Dillon in a movie called Nothing But the Truth. directed by Rod Laurie. And, I was in the dressing room. I saw Kate Beckinsale. I knew her, but I didn't really know her. And she was in hair and makeup, so she was without makeup, which is a natural thing. It was cool. It was Kate Beckinsale, cool. So when we were on set, they pulled her out to rehearse. And so, I was ready with my lines. Rod Laurie said, okay, I want you guys to rehearse. He had to turn and go off somewhere. And I was about to say my lines. At this point, she was in makeup. So when she turned and looked, it's like her hair flew back. She looked at me. I forgot all my lines. I was stunned for numerous reasons. She's a beautiful woman, and she just was Kate Beckinsale. Fortunately, the director didn't see that, so that was a memorable experience. But she was very nice, and the scene went well. I would say the next one really was the most exciting moment was Law and Order.
Okay.
Being on that show, I really enjoyed working with the actors and working with that particular director. It was just, waking up in New York and taking the train to that studio there in Brooklyn. I think it was Brooklyn. Yeah, it was Brooklyn. And, going in and doing it and just being in the atmosphere was a dream come true for me. So as it relates to film sets, those were the two most memorable.
Okay. What's been your favorite role as an actor and why? And your favorite role as a storyteller and why?
Oh, wow. I would say, you mean in general or as a stage actor or just
in general? In general.
I would say my favorite role, to be honest, that's a lot of them.
We have two of them.
I would say my favorite role as an actor is there's a play called Waiting for Godot. Some people say Waiting for Godot. It's an abstract play, and there's this character called Patso that comes out. He smokes a pipe, very eccentric, and also carries a whip. I really enjoyed that character. I mean, I enjoyed that play. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot or Waiting for Godot. And then I would say the other character that I really enjoyed playing is Exeter in Henry V, because Exeter was a badass. Yeah, I really enjoy playing him. Henry V is dealing with war, and Exeter was his arm, Henry V's arm, and I really enjoyed. I would play that character again and again and again as often as I could. I would say my favorite story to tell is Frederick Douglass, because Frederick Douglass, that character, he was 200 years ahead of his time. He was born into chattel slavery, but he found a way to overcome his limitations through the power of the written and spoken word. Wow. And went on to start his own newspaper, write 3 major biographies. He became an ambassador, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. He advised Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. He started his own bank. He played concert violin. He spoke many different languages, became a hero in Ireland and Scotland. And, he was an amazing individual. And I want people to see someone's ability to tap in and transform their lives, especially young people. So he would be the favorite story I love to tell.
Okay. All right. Now we get into the hot seat, question. Give 1 or 2 hot seat moments, an uncomfortable or embarrassing situation you were in as an actor or storyteller, and how did you deal with it?
I tell you the most embarrassing thing. I don't do this as much anymore, thus I have this here. But as Frederick Douglass, depending on what era I'm doing, I have to wear the beard, with the wig. And I had never had this experience before, Robert. I was in Cincinnati on stage doing my show. And at the beginning of the show, as I'm working it, and I'm into it, man, I'm ready, I'm on fire, I feel a breath of wind touching my face, which means the beard was not there. It was peeled off to here. And it seemed like everything just went into slow motion. And the audience became these shadows. And it was like, am I in a nightmare? Please let me be in a nightmare that I'm going to wake up from. But it wasn't a nightmare. But it didn't end there. It didn't end there. Then I start to feel a breath of wind on my other cheek. And so the beard was flopping, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm still acting. I'm trying to figure it out. And so then I'm just like, I just say, well, I can't leave it on like this. I just got to do something about it. And I snatched it off and put it in my pocket. And I said, at least I got my mustache. But then I felt a breath of wind on my lips. So now my mustache was coming off. And I was like, I did a little James Brown, took that off, put it in my pocket, and just kept going. Man, and finished the show.
But you kept going.
I kept going.
Yeah.
I lost my whole beard, my mustache, but I kept going. You know, and it did distract. You know, it wasn't the performance that I wanted to give, because in my mind I'm still thinking about, like, I'm trying to figure out how to, and I'm trying to put it into, you know, make the story stronger. But that was the one.
There you go.
Yeah.
But like you said, you kept going.
Yeah.
Because if you would have stopped,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Things happen. It's live theater.
Yeah. Things happen on this podcast, but you got to keep going.
That's right.
Got to keep going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
So I want you to tell the audience, look into the camera, how can they get in contact with you?
You can get in contact with me via email, Darius, spelled like Darius, but it's Darius, Darius, actor@gmail.com, or my website, www.dariuswallace.com. You can also reach me on Facebook, Instagram, Darius Actor, and also YouTube. I can be found in any of those places, but the bulk of the information you'll get on me is on my website at dariuswallace.com.
All right. And we at In the Hot Seat with WRP would like to thank you for being on the podcast, Darius.
Thank you.
And with that, we are out. Welcome to In the Hot Seat with WRP.